Welcome back to the Music Marketing Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about something which we talk about all the time. We're going to be talking about Lewis Capaldi. We feel like because we talk about him so much, we probably need to have a full podcast just talking about why we talk about him and what impact he's had on the industry, because I think he's had a huge impact. We're seeing so many artists copying his content style, but also so many artists now focusing on content because of him. You actually wrote a blog post on it, didn't you?
Yeah, I wrote a blog post based on him and how his content has completely changed the industry's outlook on content and how to break an artist. And he is literally he was UK number one. He's now going worldwide. He's playing the biggest festivals. He's pulling the biggest crowds. And that's all come from his content. And I wanted to discuss him because we started creating content, putting out our message about a year ago, way before Lewis Capaldi, about how content can break an artist. And he is like a living case study of this. Like, Lewis Capaldi has started Instagram stories and just got people talking about him every single day until they loved him so much. He went to UK number one, album number one, and now touring the world.
Also, he's doing exactly what we said, in a way where he didn't take money straight away. He built his audience and then he decided to cash in. So now he's doing really big brand collabs. He's just done one with Tinder. So he's done it exactly how we suggest it. And he's just proof that an artist can get their name out there from not doing anything too crazy and not having loads of money, because what he does is so normal. I think we should explain what he does anyway. So for those of you who don't know, Lewis Capaldi is a UK artist, and he basically creates content in his parents' house. He still lives at home, and the content it's funny. It's just him being really relatable. Him talking about how he lives at home, how he can't really believe what's happening with his music career. Just really relatable stuff. And this has basically led to him having a UK number one album. He's now taken to the US as well, and he's absolutely smashing it there.
How many followers has he got now? It must be like 4 million.
No, I don't think it's that big, is it?
Oh, you'll be surprised. It's a lot.
When we first discovered him, it was about 600,000. Now it's about 3.7 million.
Yeah.
That's insane. So we discovered him last year, about 600,000 followers, I'd say.
Yeah.
And it's grown that much in that time. So over 3 million people have followed him in that time.
So what do you know how he started? And I obviously don't know behind the scenes how he started, but I looked, and he did start as like a traditional marketing route. Like he got signed to Virgin, and they put him on all the kind of small introducing festivals, and there's a picture of him just playing in like a gazebo. It's like tiny little festival. No one knew who he was. He was just a good artist and a good songwriter, and that was it. And the turning point for him was he started creating these stories, and he never took himself too seriously. He just started creating funny, relatable stories where people can walk in to their friend's house or to work and say, "Did you see Lewis Capaldi's story last night?" And when you've got people saying that line, you're going to go global. If you can get someone to say that line and everyone in the office is following you and talking about you, that's when things start to spread.
Yeah, because if you actually listen to his music,
it's
all right.
Yeah.
There isn't anything massively different about it. It's singer-songwriter. It's kind of a little bit depressing. So it's not kind of reaching people, making that feel-good vibe. So what is it that makes him different? It's his content. And I think it's getting to a point now where I think artists are starting to see that because of him. Because he's gone from basically unheard of to this global phenomenon in a year. It's living proof that it works. I think that the reason that the content works so well is because it's relatable.
Yeah.
Is that why you...
Oh yeah, I'd absolutely say it's because it's relatable, and it's because it's funny, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. He's very lucky that he's naturally funny. But he just never fell into the trap of just kind of taking himself too seriously. And even when he had 400,000 followers, it was still kind of funny content. He had the weird sunglasses that he wore all of the time. He did a story, like if you go back to the story, it must have been like 2 years ago now, where he said that with his iTunes money he was going to buy his mum a Hoover, and he was joking around about how she already had a Hoover, but he wanted to buy a new one because he was in the iTunes charts. And that is relatable, and it's funny, and it's kind of like small town guy done well, and people enjoy that kind of content. And the sad thing for me is it started to create a lot of kind of Lewis Capaldi wannabes in the industry. And it's frustrating for us because we pushed content the entire time saying, guys, stop taking yourself too seriously. And then suddenly we've got people kind of now trying to be comedians when they're not, which when you create content, it has to be for you and it has to work for you. You can't just mimic somebody else because people know that it's not you.
But that's why he does so well, because his content is so him. If you watch any of his interviews, if you watch him even just videos caught by fans, he is naturally funny, and everything he says on camera, everything that's in his content is just true to him. But that's what makes it so good, and that's why people have built this relationship with him. The reason that people are going to his gigs, the reason that people are buying his CDs, people are actually buying like the physical product now because they want to support him, because they've built that relationship, and that relationship has been built through the content. So if you go to his gig, he is pretty funny, he speaks to his audience like he does in his content, but people are there just because they love what he's made. They like him because they feel like they know him from the content.
It was you that told me he has anxiety.
Yeah, he had an anxiety attack. I think it was in Amsterdam, and he had to just walk off the stage because he was so anxious. And in his content, you never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
But it's because his content is so real that people want to support him. And if people are just trying to copy that content strategy, it just doesn't work, because you can sniff it out so easily. And I think that's why his content's so good, just because it's real.
Exactly, yeah. And now he's got to a stage where he's kind of everywhere. And do you think to me, his content looks like he's struggling to get the content through, or do you think he's changed strategies?
I think because now there's a lot more money in it. So he's got this brand collaboration with Tinder. He did something with Greg's. There is money there to be had, and he knows very much that he needs to get album sales. So what you'll find is, in the past, he had funny piece of content. It would be funny, push my release a little bit. Funny, push my tour a little bit. But now it's very much pushing, occasionally something funny. And I don't know whether that's because there's money to be had, or the label's pushing it out, or he just hasn't got the time. Because he's on tour, he's just released an album, so he just released another EP about 3 months later. So there's constant releases that need to be happening. So I don't know whether that's the case, maybe.
Yeah, I also think that's a great point about what you made about how he balances content between funny content and promotion. So what he did was he created his own engaged advertising space. That is what influencers do. They create content, so you click their content every single day to see what they're putting up, and one of them happens to be an ad. He created that for himself. He created his own advertising network where he can advertise his music for free. So you would go onto his stories, and the reason I'd go on is to see something funny, not about his music. I wanted to see something funny because he put something up every single day. Then I happened to see that he is almost going to get number one, and I bought my only ever track that I ever bought on iTunes was Lewis Capaldi, because it was almost like a vote. I wanted him.
It was a joke as well. It was a bit of a joke.
It was a bit of a joke, yeah.
Because he was so sure he wouldn't get it, because he was competing with such big names, that everyone that followed him was sort of like, all right, shall we give it a go?
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing, because it's not like his music's a joke. His music's really good, and it's so serious.
Yeah.
And it also shows, again, that you don't have to have content that's similar to your music. You, from taking in his content, you would have no idea what kind of music he releases.
Depressing.
But who cares, because he's got that audience. And what I think is so amazing is, like you said, he's made that free advertising space now. So he's got 3.7 million followers. He puts something out about a release, guaranteed what? 1 million streams
Yep.
just from those followers. And that's if not everyone clicks on it.
Yeah.
So you've got that free space, which anyone can do if they build an audience. And it's just like brands do. They do the exact same thing. They try to build their following like influencers, and they just can then go in for the hit and sell their thing. And Lewis has done that great.
So what do you think the next steps are from then? He like talking about him just as an artist. If you were in his position, how would you take it from here? 3.7 million followers, UK-based audience mainly, going into Europe.
I mean, he's now in the US, so I think that's great because he's touring in the US, and I think his humour is very British, so to go across to the US is quite difficult, but he seems to be doing all right. I think it's a little bit like James Corden. For those of you who don't know, James Corden, he was on a really famous TV show in the UK, which was very British humour, and he's now gone across to the US and he has a show. And he's very different in his styles, and he knows how to do that. I don't know if Lewis is going to be able to do that because he's such British humour.
Yeah.
But if he goes to the US, I think he's going to have to change his humour slightly.
Yeah.
But I think if I was him, I'd go back to the original content a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I now don't check his story every day. I used to religiously just because his content was so funny.
Yeah.
But because it's promoting so much, you're less likely to view it. And I think it's the same for any artist, no matter what size they're at. If you're promoting too much, you need to find this happy medium of adding value and then promoting. The more you add value, the easier it is to promote because you've got their trust.
Yeah.
And just that balance, you need to find it. And I think going too much on the selling,
Yeah, I'd
you
love
do
to
lose
see
that
his
value.
stats now because he's really kind of dropped in terms of people talking about him.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that just that pushing the track all of the time hasn't worked. Maybe his label stepped in and started asking him to push the track more, forgetting that because he's on tour constantly, he's not able to create that content anymore. And they don't understand that there's a balance there between good quality content and taking from your audience. And right now, if you go on a story, it's mainly taking from your audience plus a little bit of on tour stuff. So you're right, he does need to go back to basics and what worked for him.
Yeah, what's difficult with that kind of content is because it's so spontaneous, it's difficult to create so much of it. It was easier for him in the past because he did just sit in his parents' room, but now he's constantly on tour, he's in the studio, he's doing interviews. So to create those sort of skits, he either needs to plan it, which doesn't really look authentic, or he needs to have his camera out constantly. So if I was the label, I would have a videographer on him 24/7.
Would you create a YouTube channel for him?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that's something they're really missing out on because, as we always say, YouTube subscribers are worth so much more than Instagram followers. So even if he had 500,000 YouTube subscribers, those subscribers are worth so much because you're taking their full attention. So I think I would have a videographer constantly following him around because that would just be capturing any funny moments, even if that's just something for a story. But then you could also create vlogs for him. I think he's so naturally funny that if you had that videographer there, those vlogs would engage so many people. And then it'd be easier to promote as well because you could just put the tracks in between. You could have live footage as well. And then it'd be so much easier because it wouldn't look too forced.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, YouTube is one of those audiences where you can take it anywhere you want. So Instagram is a platform where it's not going to be around forever. There'll be something else. Maybe it's TikTok. Well, actually, he's on TikTok. I'll let you cover that one. So he's on TikTok now, but YouTube is one of those audiences where I genuinely believe that if you've got an Instagram audience and Instagram goes down, you will not be able to get people to search for you on whatever the new platform is and take that audience away.
Yeah.
YouTube is such an engaged platform where you can respond to all of the comments in a really clean manner. There's no distractions. People can just binge watch all of your content for hours on end with just you instead of like being interrupted by other people's content all of the time. It is such an amazing audience to have. I genuinely believe that one subscriber is worth 100 Instagram followers.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would personally love to see him get on YouTube and just create a channel.
He gets fantastic music video views because his videos are always really imaginative. So he did one where he was dancing and it was hilarious because he so obviously can't dance. And another one was really, really serious and it was about an organ donor giving a heart, I believe. And it got amazing engagement because he posted it on socials and he premiered it, so he replied to all of the comments.
Also got a celebrity in the music video.
Yes, he did all things like that so well. But if he had constant videos going up, as soon as he put a music video up, it would get so much more attention.
That's
I
very
think.
true.
But yeah, back to TikTok. So he's on TikTok now. I was really surprised at his content because he's naturally funny. I thought the content would be a lot better. It felt as if someone was forcing him to be on it. It might have even just been himself where he thought, you know what, there's an audience there, I need to be on it. But it wasn't really fitting to him. So as we always say, if you're creating content for you and you're creating content which is fitting to your personality and all things like that, it's going to come across a lot more authentic and people are going to appreciate it more. But he was very much creating content thinking, I need to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously TikTok is mainly used to make people laugh. It's all, majority of it is comedy. But it felt a little bit forced, and I feel there's more he can do on it. I don't know what he can do, but I feel there is more he can do with it. Maybe even just creating his own challenges, because he's already got a big enough audience on the platform, because people moved from Instagram to TikTok. But what I think is also really important is not putting all his eggs in one basket. He's doing very, very well on Instagram, but Instagram's organic reach is going to drop. They're going to expect people to be paying more for ads. He needs to be thinking about other platforms, I think. So YouTube and TikTok could be great ones for him just because of his humour. And podcasting. Yeah. I think he'd be so good on a podcast.
He would be very good at it, especially if he had his own podcast where he had control, because we mentioned the anxiety thing, but if it was his own and have his own guests where you can just sit around, have a beer, have some food, chat, people would listen to that. I like that idea.
Or even just chatted with him by himself. If you gave him a microphone, put him in a room by himself and just said talk about whatever you want, I think he'd be able to do it purely because a lot of his stories are comedy sketches by himself. So if you gave him like a situation to do it in, so you could say, oh, what's the funniest thing that's happened on tour, I think he could talk for about an hour.
That's true, yeah.
And I would definitely listen in, because I feel like you definitely have a personal relationship with him. So podcasters takes it that step further. You feel like you're having that really personal connection. You feel like you're actually having a conversation. So I think podcasting for him would be so good.
I think so, yeah. Podcasting, going back to basics on TikTok, and also the YouTube channel, having a videographer that he knows very well, can have banter with him and just follow him around. And I think a lot of artists can kind of learn from where he's came from, and he's just been true to himself the entire way, and he hasn't tried to be someone he's not. He's understood his audience, he's interacted with his audience, and that is why he's been successful. Not because he's funny, because he didn't try and find an audience. He let the audience find him.
Yeah, I think
Good place
that's
to leave
it.
it.
Yeah, we tried something different with this one. Let us know what you think of it. I really enjoyed this, so hopefully people like it and we can do another one like it. And if you did like it, make sure to hit that like button. If you're listening as a podcast, make sure to leave us a review so we can actually get one.
Nobody ever does.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another one.